on this, I want to bring in Mike McCormick now. He's a former stenographer for Joe Biden from 2011 to 2017. He's the author of the book, The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. And for today's purposes, he's also been in that courtroom watching the proceedings. Mike, good to have you back with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, it's great to hear you back on. We've been missing you for a couple of weeks here.
Mike, thank you so much. What's it been like at the trial today?
Well, so here's a quick story. I had a bit of a drive getting up here. I walk into the men's room, and who walks in behind me but Hunter Biden? So that was a weird start to the day.
Yeah.
I walked right out, didn't say anything, and the Secret Service is in there. So the trial is going. We're going through closing arguments, and you did a great summation there. I was up here last week for Hallie Biden's testimony. That was pretty emotional. It's been kind of an emotional roller coaster for her. Hunter's trying to, be stoic about it. But the whole Biden family is there today. Jill, daughters, Aunt Valerie. Joe's not there, but just about everybody else is. And a whole crew of supporters and friends, all Wilmington dignitary types. So it's going to the jury, and the jury they're Wilmington everyday people, and they're looking at this courtroom and they're seeing like these celebrities, and that's kind of how the closing arguments went.
Yeah, I kind of got the impression that one of the reasons Jill is showing up is to try and give some razzle dazzle to the jury, that she's showing up like, oh, look at the star power, the First Lady of the United States is here. How could we possibly convict that guy?
Right, and I think it made prove effective. So the prosecutors, they have a dynamite case. I mean, the evidence they have is substantial, and it's in Hunter's own words. Like you said, in his book, his text messages, Hallie testified it to him. He had another woman that he was sort of a prostitute person paying to be with him, and she testified both of those under immunity about his drug use, massive drug use during this time period.
Yeah.
The prosecutors said he withdrew from ATMs $50,000 a month in the month of September, October, and November of 2012. He bought the gun on October 12th, 2012.
2018.
So all this, 2018.
Yes.
Sorry, October 12th, 2018. Yes, thanks. And so all this money was cash going into where? And they didn't really have a good explanation for it. So the prosecutors had this, and I looked over at Hunter as they're laying this financial information out. He was stressing. You could sort of see him rubbing his face, getting a little stressed about it. And then they started talking about this interaction he had with his daughter shortly after he bought the gun, before Hallie threw it out. He went up to New York, and she had this text with him where she said, "Dad, I can't take this anymore." He was trying to connect with her and do all this. It just was middle of the morning, early morning stuff, get my car and do this. And it was just bizarre behavior for a father of a woman who lives in Brooklyn. And so she's like, "Dad, I can't take this anymore." And he was a little stressed about that. So the prosecution has a pretty strong case. And then Abby Lowell, the lawyer, gets up to do the closing for the defense. And it was literally hard to follow. It was like watching a guy with a laser pointer play with a cat for an hour. I mean, it was just all over the place. All he kept trying to do was bring up reasonable doubt for all these a variety of things.
I can't help but notice some of the parallels here between, and the differences, massive differences between the Trump case in New York and this case with Hunter Biden. And both of them involve basically the types of things you write down on paper and whether or not you were telling the truth, right? That's at its core, fundamentally, what's going on here. And in Trump's case, Trump was not even involved in documenting the expenses that went to Michael Cohen. They were categorized as legal expenses, which actually makes a lot of sense when you choose one from a drop-down menu. Who's getting the money? Oh, it's the attorney. Legal expenses. Whereas in Hunter's case, it's Hunter himself who is filling out the form, and he is, by all, it's obvious to anybody, he's lying on the form.
Yeah.
This one is open and shut, and yet here we are saying, okay, Trump was just convicted in a case where he wasn't even the guy filling out the paperwork, and it seems like the paperwork was correctly filled out. And Hunter Biden may have a chance of not being convicted here, even though he pretty obviously lied on this form.
Yes. And, the defense argument about the form was he tried to give him a grammar lesson. He's like, look, this part of the question begins with the verb was, but this question begins with the verb would. So it means that he would have to have been an addict right at that moment that he was filling out the
You
form.
had to be smoking a crack pipe as the form was being filled out. That's the only way that you could say that he was lying.
Right. That was his argument, and it was like impossible to follow. I mean, if you're, it just didn't make sense. But he doesn't have to make sense. He's got the emotion behind him. So he goes through this really long, bizarre rant, and then he gets to the end, and he's like, "There's a Bill of Rights is out in front of the courthouse. This is your duty to uphold that Bill of Rights." And he just raised it up to the jurors. If you're an individual juror on this and you see the pictures, then you know that the pictures of him doing crack don't include him in October of 2018. So he's trying to draw this sort of blank around this specific date that nothing really happened then.
Yeah.
And then he goes to jurors, you have to be responsible for this. And he turns to the family, there's the family. And he's just raising this emotional pitch to the jurors. And, it's Wilmington. They've been hearing about the Bidens forever. This is, they're suddenly the celebrities. I mean, he goes, I don't know if you noticed, but every time your jurors walk in, everybody in the court stands for you. Well, that person standing in the court is the First Lady of the United States for them.
There was a devastating moment on Friday in the trial. A DEA agent was on the stand, and Hunter's defense attorney raised a question to him saying, there's no evidence of drug use in October of 2018, right? And the DEA agent said, well, with the exception of the October text that we talked about where he said he was smoking crack, and there's a text message here additionally from right the day after Hunter Biden purchased the gun on October 12th, 2018. And in it, he's texting with Haley Biden, and Haley says, why won't you answer my calls? Where are you? Are you with someone? And Hunter responds, yes, Bernard, who hangs at 7-Eleven on Green Hill in Lancaster. I'm now off Maryland Avenue behind Blue Rock Stadium waiting for a dealer named Mookie. His brother L is getting in car now. He has my money. Mad. I'm getting pissed. And so he's talking about he's actively involved in a drug deal. This is the day after he purchased the gun.
Right. And so yeah, I mean their case is cut and dried. It is a slam dunk case on the evidence. They proved every element of the case on the evidence, everything. And the legal argument against him was just bizarre until they get to the emotion of, well, this is Hunter Biden. You have his life in your hands. This is his family. You're the jurors. And that's where it's going to go. Yeah. I don't have high confidence that they're going to come back with a guilty verdict. I really don't.
You don't think so? Because you think the emotional appeals are going to resonate, the star power in that room, the sense of being in Wilmington, and these are celebrities from here. All of that is going to overwhelm at least one, if not more, members of the jury. Yeah,
I think that's true. They seem. I've looked at them. It's a cross section of Wilmington. They're regular people, but it's almost bizarre. And the thing is, my experience. I've been around the Bidens for years. But they haven't. This is a really new thing for them, and they're just walking into all this media and all this attention. Yeah. And so it's got to weigh on. I think they're going to come back with a verdict tonight, and it's going to be, we're going to see reasonable doubt. We just see enough reasons for reasonable doubt.
Yeah. So and then Biden has said in the past week, or somebody at least at the White House did, that they will not be pardoning Hunter. Is that so? First of all, I don't believe them. I just if this got to a point where Hunter Biden was headed to jail time, I think Joe Biden intercepts it. What do you make of that?
I mean, well, I think they know the fix is in.
Good point.
I really think, and it was weird because the Abby Lowell argument at the end almost sounded like it had a political element of like a political messaging. No one is above the law. No, is what he said. And so there's that echo of what Joe Biden's been saying in his argument. And so I think they carry We tried Hunter. He got off.
Yeah.
No one is above the law. The law works if you're abiding.
See, yeah, justice is blind, and that's how it worked out. Here's another piece that raised my suspicions in the last week. I saw the jury selection process came through, and it was always interesting to watch jury selection. In the Trump case, remember, they were screening out anybody who was on Truth Social. It was like, okay, well, that's kind of a giveaway, isn't it? But in the Hunter case, someone who was a Secret Service agent ended up on the jury. Previously a Secret Service agent. I don't know much more about them, but you get these bare bones biographical details. But one of the features of this story that I haven't really seen much coverage of, Mike, is that there were allegations that the Secret Service was apparently involved in trying to retrieve the original gun paperwork from the gun store. Now, the Secret Service has, as an official matter, denied it on the basis of the fact that they couldn't corroborate such a claim. But it's a big claim, and the gun store owner says that the Secret Service definitely showed up at his gun store seeking Hunter Biden's paperwork in the wake of that gun being retrieved from that trash can. And we still don't have answers on that, do we? Has any of this come up during the trial, the role that the Secret Service may have played in covering up for Hunter?
That's a really good question. The New York Post did a good job of sort of outlining the profiles of the jurors. And I think the Secret Service person is a woman who worked for the agency, and her husband was an agent, but she's not an agent. She's like an admin person.
Okay.
And then they did not bring anything out about the Secret Service agents, nor did they ever talk about whether a gun was fired or not. We never knew that. I never heard that. They said there was a bunch of bullets recovered, but they never said whether it was fired. The Marco Polo, the guy, Garrett Ziegler, who made a splash here getting, yelled at by Hunter Biden's wife. His theory is that there may have been ex-Secret Service agents posing as agents who were working with the Bidens that went to that store.
In other words, they went to the store. They went to the store and they tried to use their Secret Service, their previous Secret Service status, or at least the idea, or maybe somebody was just straight up lying and said they had Secret Service, but they wanted to hassle this guy into turning over the paperwork.
Yeah, and he didn't. He didn't turn it over, so that's why we're at trial, because he kept it.
He did keep it. Yeah. That piece is so. When we look at this saga, Mike, it's one thing for Hunter Biden to have a drug issue and for him to lie in order to get a gun and all these other things. I mean, he's not an elected official. That's still true to this day. But to the extent that it intersects with his father, it's a big story. And if you have Secret Service people who are and remember, this is 2018. Neither Joe nor Hunter even have Secret Service detail at this point. How in the world, if this is true, did the Secret Service get involved in a cover-up for the Biden family? That seems like a massive scandal that deserves much more interrogation than we've seen anywhere. Yep.
And, it's just one of the many, many points about the Bidens and, all the, like you said, the IRS agents came out and showed all the banking records that they had and the investigation that was thwarted. The investigation was thwarted by lawyers in the U.S. Attorney's Office here that's now trying the case. He's the special counsel, David Weiss, but, it was his office that was sort of slow-walking the investigation into Hunter and Joe back in the day. And I've certainly tried to get information into them to become a witness in front of them, and they won't talk to me.
No, because they don't care. They let the statute of limitations run out on some of the most important possible charges they could have brought that would have implicated Joe and their finances. They've let those go. And of course, they negotiated that sweetheart deal. Leslie Wolf, that assistant U.S. attorney, had her hands all over that thing. It got intercepted at the last minute by the judge whose courtroom you sat in today.
Yep, and she's doing a great job. And she's been very fair to both sides. But I think you're going to wind up with just, no one's above the law, and Hunter got his day in court, and this is what the jury decided. And the jury's all Wilmington folks, and it's a Wilmington courtroom.
Well, if that happens, we'll remember who told us it would. Mike McCormick, thank you very much. Good to have you with us as always, sir.
All right, Vince, great to hear you back.